Roddy McDowall appeared to be the epitome of the ideal Hollywood gentleman. He befriended every big star, shot stunning pictures, and gathered movies. However, on December 18, 1974, the FBI sent agents and vehicles to raid his home. They took $5 million worth of recordings and more than 1,000 flicks. What have they discovered? Not all of it was movies. It was proof of something much greater. When all was said and done, Roddy had cheated on his best buddies in order to protect himself. Others, like Rock Hudson and Elizabeth Taylor, were unaware of what had happened to them. Roddy McDowall was born in Herne Hill, London, on September 17, 1928. He was Roderick Andrew Anthony Jude McDowall in full. His life was influenced by the stage from the beginning. Thomas was a commercial seaman, his father's occupation. Although she never succeeded, his mother Winifred had long aspired to be an actress. Instead, she put all of her hopes in Roddy. At the age of 4, Roddy had already won a poetry competition. He enrolled in elocution classes at age 5. Making him shine was his mother's top priority. He made his cinematic debut in Murder in the Family when he was 10 years old. Before he left Britain, he had already acted in 16 movies. Virginia, his sister, also followed acting, and during their 4 years at Hanover Academy, the two of them took home almost every drama prize. And then there was war. German aircraft dominated the skies over Britain in 1940, when Roddy was just 12 years old. Under Operation Pied Piper, his family migrated to America as part of a large evacuation effort that relocated 1.5 million people. They had only $42 when they arrived in the U.S., though, due to wartime money regulations. Since his father enlisted in the military, his mother had to provide for them. In the hopes that someone would take notice, she took Roddy to various entertainment agencies in New York. At that point, Hollywood noticed something unique. Fox Studios was trying to find a new child star. Roddy's flawless British accent and his true narrative of fleeing the war set him apart. He sent his screen test directly to Hollywood. When he watched it, director William Wyler recognized right away that Roddy had something special. In 1941, he played a child assisting someone in escaping the Nazis in Manhunt, his first American picture. It felt familiar. He was cast in Fox's How Green Was My Valley the same year. His performance helped the film win Best Picture at the 1942 Oscars, even though he was only 13. To create an 80-acre recreation of a Welsh mining hamlet for the film, the studio invested $110,000. With actual coal chunks imported from Wales, construction took 6 months. Roddy was hailed as a young actor who might compete with Shirley Temple by critics. His deal was for 7 years. My Friend Flicka, in which Roddy featured, earned $2.4 million in rentals in 1943. He played a child named Ken who develops a bond with a wild horse. Working with real animals, including one that was unintentionally killed during filming, and learning how to ride a horse were requirements. The film was so successful that Fox produced a sequel in 1945 without delay. The world's audiences adored him. He played a more significant part in The Keys of the Kingdom in 1944, portraying Gregory Peck's teenage priest. In addition to acting out intensely emotional events like losing his parents in a storm, he had to adopt a Scottish accent. He was already taking on responsibilities with significant complexity at the age of 16. Then came 1945 with Molly and Myself. Because he resembled his late mother, Roddy's character, a sullen teenager, thought his father detested him. It was a mix of drama and humor. One scenario required him to cry, while the next required him to make amusing impressions. It was adored by audiences. Fan letters was flooding in. He was perceived by many as a real boy experiencing real hardships, similar to those of many during the war. Behind the scenes, however, things weren't simple. It was a common misconception that he had won a Juvenile Academy Prize in 1944. However, that was given to Margaret O'Brien. However, Roddy had taken on the role of providing for his family. At the age of 16, he was making $2,500 a week, which is equivalent to hundreds of thousands of dollars today. He worked 6 days a week, so he didn't have much time for friends or a typical adolescent life. His mother kept all of his money, whereas many child stars lost it. But he felt homesick and nervous from the pressure. As he became older, many questioned if he would be able to shed his child star persona. Compulsion, a Broadway production that played from October 1957 to February 1958, was the catalyst for that transformation. It was based on the actual events surrounding the murder of 14-year-old Bobby Franks in 1924. Roddy portrayed the icy and cunning young Arthur Strauss. His co-star Dean Stockwell remained in the film, but Bradford Dillman took his place when it was made in 1959. Even the real-life murderer Nathan Leopold attempted, but was unable, to stop the film's production. However, Roddy's onstage performance was a game-changer. He had a more sinister part in the 1960 film Midnight Lace. Malcolm Stanley, the persona he played, was eerie and sinister. Much different from the nice boy he used to be. Doris Day, who received a Golden Globe nomination, starred in the film, which had a budget of $3 million. Every scenario was made more tense by Roddy's presence, and viewers got to see another side of him. Roddy played King Arthur's illegitimate son, Mordred, in the original Broadway production of Camelot that same year. Before being replaced, he performed in the role 284 times. There were a total of 873 performances of the program. Fans started to love his song, The 7 Deadly Virtues. The production was successful despite backstage issues. He was nominated for a Tony for his performance, which demonstrated his genuine theatrical talent. Then, in 1963, there was the Cleopatra turmoil. He was Octavius, Roddy. In what at the time was the most costly movie ever produced, costing $44 million, or more than $450 million in today's dollars. After almost going bankrupt, Fox had to sell the property that would eventually become Century City. Roddy was a close observer of the Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton scandal. During filming, Taylor almost died of pneumonia, and $5 million had already been squandered. Before Rome became the location of production, just her costumes came about $194,000. Even with all of the catastrophe, the movie generated $57.7 million, making it the highest-grossing film of the year. Roddy remained professional the entire time. He portrayed Matthew the Apostle in The Greatest Story Ever Told, a massive biblical film that took almost 3 years to complete, in 1965. At $20 million, it featured more than 100 speaking roles. The American Southwest was used for filming, rather than the Middle East. Max von Sydow, Charlton Heston, and Sidney Poitier were among the film's stars. Even though it only made $15.5 million and suffered losses, Roddy's performance demonstrated his progress. His portrayal of Matthew as a reflective, inquisitive guy enabled him to demonstrate a depth of feeling and spirituality. Roddy McDowall endured something that few performers would ever acknowledge. He had to get up at 2 every morning and spend 3.5 hours in a makeup chair in order to transform into Cornelius, the kind chimpanzee archaeologist from Planet of the Apes. When they tested the cosmetics for the first time, it took up to 7 hours to apply and 3 hours to remove. It was so hot that in order to allow his skin to breathe, the studio had to develop new kinds of foam rubber. It was not merely a mask of cosmetics. Layers of hair, distinct ears, and a distinctive chin were all parts of it. He even had to paint his lower teeth black. He put in months of doing this 5 days a week, and it paid off. It cost $5.8 million to make and was released in 1968. It was a big success. Cornelius became his most well-known character. He gained notoriety for his meticulous work ethic. Roddy, however, didn't stop there. He continued using his 8mm camera to record behind the scenes when others went home. The entire makeup procedure was recorded by him. Using full orangutan faces, he recorded the actors laughing, drinking through straws, and flying to the beach in a helicopter. In order to make a quick appearance on the Carol Burnett Present and present the audience his short documentary, he even endured that same lengthy makeup procedure in 1974. Roddy had the idea to save those moments when no one else had. He had no idea that he was documenting history. He came back for the May 26 release of Escape from the Planet of the Apes in 1971. His character changed this time. He continued to portray Cornelius, but the plot was set in Los Angeles in the 1970s. Persecution and time travel were topics covered in the film. Now, it was more than simply motion. Emotion was at play. The responsibility for that shift fell on Roddy. The film became the most acclaimed sequel in the original series because of his outstanding performance. Because it prioritized characters over explosives, critics praised it. It was Roddy's fault. In 1974, Roddy returned as a new character named Galen when the television adaptation of Planet of the Apes began. Although there were just 14 episodes in the series, Roddy's presence gave it dimension. He contributed to the writing's direction. In order to speed up teamwork, he even applied his understanding of the drawn-out makeup procedure. He remained devoted to the brand and continued to defend its legacy in interviews and documentaries, despite the series' abrupt conclusion. Roddy was not merely a performer. He had extraordinary photographic talent as well. In 1966, he published Double Exposure, a daring book about photography. 98 celebs were featured on its 251 pages. However, each star's description was provided by another well-known individual rather than journalists. James Baldwin wrote a description of Marlon Brando. In her profile, Audrey Hepburn described Lauren Bacall. It had never been done like that. Roddy became one of the most reputable photographers in Hollywood as a result of the book's phenomenal sales. Since 1953, he had contributed to many magazines, including Vogue and Life. Everyone wanted to have their picture taken by him now. He went on to publish Double Exposure, Take 2 in 1989. The color of this one was darker. The most startling aspect was Judy Garland at her most depressed. She had known Roddy back in 1963 when The Judy Garland Show was being filmed. He took pictures of her when no one else could, when she was crying, ill, and exhausted, and during breakdowns. The book included candid statements from people who witnessed the studio's destruction of her alongside these pictures. By the time she hit 40, MGM had pushed her so hard that she had lost her health. The pills? All that was in those pictures was the alcohol. Roddy had witnessed it all. At his Malibu house, Roddy recorded a private beach party one summer in 1965. Not just any party, though. It was Paul Newman flipping hamburgers. Lauren Bacall was naked and sunbathing. Jane Fonda, Natalie Wood, Rock Hudson, and Anthony Perkins were there. Everyone unwinded. They consumed alcohol and smoked. And, for once, acted like everyone else. With her spouse absent, Natalie Wood flirted with a number of men. The video was never made public by Roddy. Careers would be ruined, he realized. However, Hollywood like we have never seen it before, real, unvarnished, and intimate, was captured on those 16mm reels. Montgomery Clift suffered a horrific car accident in 1956 after departing Elizabeth Taylor's home from a dinner party. He nearly perished when he struck a telephone pole. He had shattered cheekbones, nose, and jaw. His face was permanently altered, and he required extensive surgery. Within weeks of the injury, his close buddy Roddy began to take pictures of him. He attempted to grin again in the pictures, perfecting his facial expressions in front of mirrors. He never released them during Clift's lifetime. His goal was to keep his pal safe. However, the harsh price of celebrity and the drive to maintain perfection were subtly shown by those pictures. Roddy's Double Exposure, Take 4 came out in 1993. Elizabeth Taylor and he had been friends for 50 years, as this book disclosed. She talked openly about her marriages, her weight issues, and her addictions. "I possess them, not just love them," she stated. That was her description of Richard Burton. The images were devastating. She was shown crying after a divorce in one, and without makeup in another. A photo she took of Roddy, a testament to their intense trust, was even featured in the book. Their bond lasted till his passing. They had first met in 1943 while working as kid actors. Just to check in, Roddy contacted Elizabeth every single day. He was her refuge. Even the background of her old private recordings, which are currently included on HBO's Elizabeth, The Lost Tapes, feature his voice. Elizabeth returned to Los Angeles and visited him daily till the end of his life in 1998, when he was dying of cancer. She hosted a private memorial at her house when he passed away. Maureen O'Hara was nearly ruined in 1957 by a fictitious controversy from Confidential magazine. Roddy remained by her even though they said she had done ignominious things at the back of a theater. They starred together in the movie How Green Was My Valley in 1941, which is when he first met her. While her brother demonstrated that she hadn't even been in the country, he remained close to her and took pictures of her during the court proceedings. The case was a watershed. It contributed to the magazine's demise, which had harmed numerous innocent celebrities. Additionally, Roddy organized covert Malibu gatherings where Tab Hunter and Rock Hudson, two reticent actors, were able to be authentic. They felt protected, shared secrets, and laughed. Part of it was videotaped by Roddy, not to stir up controversy but to document their true selves, hidden behind the masks and deception Hollywood had them wear. Then there was A Star Is Born, which featured Judy Garland's return. The budget for 1954 was a staggering $5 million. However, the studio trimmed 27 minutes without the director's approval. Garland's chances of winning an Oscar were destroyed by that choice, which also permanently harmed her career. Roddy caught it all. He captured her disputes, her anguish, and her breakdowns on camera. The movie is now regarded as a classic. At the time, it almost broke her. It was caught by Roddy, since he never turned his eyes from the reality. Acting in Hollywood wasn't the only thing Roddy McDowall did. By the early 1970s, he had subtly established his own private film archive, something that even big companies lacked. He possessed 337 different pictures by 1974. His collection was centered around 160 of those, which were rare 16mm prints. In his North Hollywood garage, he kept films like Lassie Come Home, Citizen Kane, and My Pal Flicka. Many of them were purchased directly from the studios, who were making room by discarding their original film reels. Even Errol Flynn's complete personal collection, including home movies and unfinished features, was purchased by Roddy from Flynn's widow. He transferred them to Sony U-matic magnetic tape, which cost him thousands. Which, in his opinion, would live longer than film, and came before VHS and Betamax. Roddy did not gather in order to earn money. He only billed friends what he could recall paying. On one occasion, he claimed to have paid precisely $705 for 3 films. His garage was more than a place to store things. It turned into a miniature lost film museum. That all changed, however, on December 18, 1974. The FBI arrived with agents and vehicles that day. During their raid on Roddy's home, they found more than 1,000 videotapes and 160 film reels. According to the government, the total value of the collection was $5,500, $426. The FBI had never conducted such a large-scale raid on movie piracy. The agents confiscated prints of his own films, such as Tam Lin, Lassie Come Home, and Planet of the Apes. Like treasures, the tapes were labeled, packed, and stored. However, Roddy wasn't merely gathering information, the government was constructing a case behind the scenes. Films were being illegally copied and distributed by him. Roddy was aware that things were risky. He decided to assist rather than engage in combat. The FBI got names from him. He informed them that Rock Hudson had given him a print of James Dean's movie Giant. He also mentioned Dick Martin, Mel Torme, and Arthur P. Jacobs from the Planet of the Apes television series. Official paperwork had other identities blocked out. They were taken aback. Losing his films was heartbreaking for Roddy, but forsaking his pals was far more painful, according to a fellow collector. Even Roddy's close friend and well-known journalist Robert Osborne claimed years later that he was unaware that Roddy had complied. He never brought it up, if Rock Hudson ever found out. This is all the more devastating because of how it began. In the 1960s, Roddy started collecting not as a pirate, but as a guardian. Studios were discarding outdated movies they believed to be useless. Roddy thought these movies should be preserved. He had no desire to make money. Having duplicates, he claimed, aided his acting studies. Even his escape from the world of the apes left him with a print of his dying scene, which he retained to enhance his work. But the law didn't give a damn. He was in violation of copyright laws when he sold or exchanged tapes with other collectors, even at cost. Roddy didn't hold the rights to several of the prints, his lawyer later clarified. Fox and other studios continued to do so. The government dismissed the case by June 1975. They didn't charge Roddy. No trial, no time in jail. But the harm had already done. He no longer had movie evenings. There were some pals who never returned. His name was permanently linked to the raid, despite the fact that he was cleared. His attempt to move on was to assist in the legal preservation of films. After joining the Academy's board, he went on to assist in the establishment of the National Film Preservation Board. He even worked on restoring the 1963 Cleopatra in the 1990s. What started as a private passion turned into a warning to the public. The distinction between stealing and conserving something is subtle. Most individuals were unaware of Roddy's other side of life. Montgomery Clift was introduced to him by Elizabeth Taylor in 1951. The affection between the two men was intense. Roddy even relocated to New York to be with him. Roddy quit acting nearly entirely for 2.5 years. Montgomery was all he was concerned about. The partnership, however, ended. Clift's attempt to break things up devastated Roddy. He made an attempt to end his life. Amazingly, he lived through it and never harbored resentment for Clift. Until the very end, he remained by his side. Clift's final film, The Defector, had them playing together. According to Clift, he would never have been able to complete it without Roddy's help. Being openly gay in Hollywood could have destroyed your career at the time Roddy lived. During the 1950s, celebrities were being exposed by gossip publications such as Confidential. Rock Hudson almost lost his job. Agent Henry Wilson, who oversaw a number of gay performers, exposed some of his clients in order to protect others. He even scared off extortionists with off-duty police officers. In public, Roddy remained silent, but in private, he established a secure environment. Both homosexual and heterosexual celebs were able to unwind fearlessly in his house. Known as Hollywood's father. Confessor, he protected people's secrets. He kept everything to himself. Roddy purchased a beachfront home in Malibu in 1965. He recorded celebrities attending private parties without security or cosmetics. There is video showing celebrities like Jane Fonda, Paul Newman, and Lauren Bacall simply relaxing in the sun, as well as Julie Andrews strolling along the shore with her kid. These sequences weren't from a movie. They were genuine moments of confidence. He and Tab Hunter also participated in picture assignments. Another reclusive actor, dressed just in short shorts, preparing hot dogs and feigning to be boyfriends. It was dangerous but fun. Both careers might have ended if those pictures had been shown to the studios. In his lifetime, Roddy only directed one film. It was named Tam Lin, after a spooky old Scottish song. In 1967, he succeeded with Ava Gardner at the forefront. Strange psychedelic scenes that brilliantly encapsulated the 1960s were included. However, the firm that made the movie filed for bankruptcy before it could be released. 3 years were spent on a shelf. By the time it was eventually launched in 1970, it had been altered and disassembled. Even different names were given to it, such as Toys and Games and The Devil's Widow. It was a failure. Roddy didn't ever again direct. When Martin Scorsese assisted in restoring the original cut in 1998, critics were finally able to see what Roddy had attempted to produce. It was dubbed a lost jewel. However, it was too late by that point. In 1985, Roddy played one of his strongest parts. In the television series Fright Night, he portrayed Peter Vincent, a vampire hunter whose show is cancelled since no one wants to see vampire killers anymore. In many ways, the portrayal reflected Roddy's own life. Feeling washed up, he had recently been sacked from a true horror show. In the film, he encounters actual vampires. After earning $24.9 million, the movie became a cult favorite. He was adored by young horror enthusiasts, and for a time it seemed like a resurgence. The irony is that he was too busy directing Tam Lin to make an appearance in Beneath the Planet of the Apes. He didn't appear in any other Apes movies. On October 3, 1998, Roddy passed away, leaving behind something remarkable. He possessed decades' worth of home videos, letters, and personal diaries. Although he bequeathed them to Boston University, he stipulated in his will that no one could open them until 2098, which was 100 years after his passing. Everyone was stunned by that. According to legal experts, the substance must be explosive. Something should only be sealed for that long in order to safeguard the living. There are many who think the diaries reveal relationships, names, and secrets that the public should never know. Evidence of Elizabeth Taylor's violent marriage to Eddie Fisher, which Roddy recorded in his diaries, is purportedly contained in the collection. It might also contain correspondence on Rock Hudson's diagnosis of AIDS and the way the industry concealed it. Roddy had been close to Hudson for years and was aware of the facts before the general public, even though Hudson passed away in 1985. In addition, he had home videos of Judy Garland at parties when she was high on drugs and recordings of intimate moments with celebrities like Paul Newman, Natalie Wood, and Anthony Perkins. Roddy's close friends and family think there is one diary entry. A site detailing his attempt to end his life following the separation from Montgomery Clift. No one is permitted to view that entry or the hundreds of others that are kept in a locked archive. Not yet. However, the world will learn in 2098. In Hollywood history, Roddy McDowall continues to be one of the most intriguing, enigmatic, and devoted characters.